All right, brothers, thank you so much for joining on tonight after historic, I guess, 4 days of engagement that we've been seeing around this country for Black men. Really excited for all of us to be here this evening. Whether you're coming from Southwest Mississippi, just looking through the chat here, want to give a big shout out to going back up, Thomas Blanton. Good to see you on from DC. Kareem, glad you were the first one here early. Andre Evans, happy to have you on, brother. Let's go over to, I know I saw somebody from Southwest Mississippi. Kenneth Morris from Baltimore, Maryland. Glad to have you on. Good win, although I'm a Commanders fan. Great win over the weekend. Columbus Moore from Fayetteville. Glad to have you here. Ron Curry, we're definitely going to get to some of the points that you raised in your chat this evening. Thank you for bringing those up, good sir. And then Derek Jones, happy to have you. Mark Chambers out of Bowie, Maryland, happy to have you here as well. Brothers, really excited for this conversation this evening, as always. I'm sorry we're a little off our normal schedule where we're all on Sunday nights, but appreciate all of you that took time out of your busy week to join us here on Tuesday evening. Vincent Smalls, thank you for doing your mail-in vote part over the weekend and getting your voice heard. William Durham, happy to have you here from Philly. It's a John, and let me know what cheesesteak I need to grab when we come there next. Chewokema, happy to have you on as well. And those that are joining us, William Porter from Plant City, Florida. Hope you're safe and family is safe after the storms. But really excited. This conversation tonight is really going to be centered around the Harris-Walz blackmail policy agenda that we saw roll out. We're only going to be on for an hour this evening. It's not our normal Sunday time, but we wanted to make sure we got brothers on to at least continue in this amazing conversation that we've been seeing over these last couple of days. I'm going to go now to show a part of one of my fellow co-hosts, Roland Martin. I think he's traveling back. Interview he did with Vice President Harris just a couple of days ago. And then we're going to try to see if we can pull some of you from the chat this evening to be a part of this policy conversation. Let's go over to you, Keenan, to pull up that interview.
Our parents.
Madam Vice President,
Roland
glad to have you here. Ready to bring the funk?
I'm trying. I'm trying.
Let's get right to it. So
Okay.
right before I walked out there, someone posted a clip, and usually the clip. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do anything specifically for African Americans. But folk don't talk about what you said right before when you said that public policy that benefits Black folks, it benefits everybody else.
Right.
Even we look at historically, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, it actually didn't just impact the African Americans, it impacted everyone else. But talk about that, because so many people have only clipped that one part without understanding the public policy implications.
That's too bad. That's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that. Right. So you know that, I mean, going back even before, but Dr. King was very clear, right? If you have certain policies that recognize, one, that not everybody starts out on the same base. If you have public policy, and I'm talking about economic public policy specifically at this point, but if you have public policy that recognizes historical barriers and what we need to do then to overcome, first speak truth about them and then overcome them, that in the process of doing that, not only are you directly dealing with the injustices and the legal and procedural barriers that have been focused on Black folks, but by eliminating those barriers, everyone actually benefits, right? And I know that to be true. So my policies include what I know is going to have a profound impact on Black folks around economic policy, but everyone will benefit from them. I intend to create as president what I have named an opportunity economy that taps into the ambitions and the aspirations and the dreams of the American people, and then addresses those in a way that recognizes, unlike my opponent who was handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, not everyone has access to those kinds of resources. But when you give people access to those resources, they thrive and we all benefit. Opportunity economy. That's why I say I'm going to make sure that we give first-time home buyers a $25,000 down payment assistance. Because again, we know that when you look at the history of how Black folks have been denied the opportunity for home ownership, be it redlining or what we know it's still been happening around a bias in home appraisals, that it is a barrier to achieving intergenerational success. But when we address it by doing things like helping folks get their foot in the door with a down payment assistance, they will have the ability to be on that track of intergenerational wealth building. My plan for extending and expanding the child tax credit, $6,000 for the first year of a child's life. Because our parents, just like any parent, have a natural desire to parent their children well, but not always the resources to do that. So $6,000 in the first year of your child's life helps you buy that car seat or crib or the clothes that are necessary to build the foundation for that important phase of their development that gets them on the right track.
I do want to do the housing piece because what I think is not being talked about, the building of new housing stock.
Yes.
And so because of the home foreclosure crisis, we literally built under 9 or 10 million homes in 2010, 2020. And we're underbuilt now as well. The fewest homes being built since the 1940s.
Yes.
So a huge part of this problem with housing is that we don't have the stock. So talk about that piece there, because you got demand, but you don't actually have right now the available homes.
So, and I'm glad you actually presented the point the way you did, because let's also go back to what you know in my history on this in terms of being Attorney General. When I took on the big banks, and because they were doing predatory lending, and a lot of the folks who were targeted with that predatory lending were Black folks who were being told, oh, you don't need to worry about it. We're going to give you this money. And so you can buy a home without actually doing the analysis to figure out if they'd be able to afford to pay it back, right? And folks trusted the banks that if you're going to loan me the money, then you must have determined I have the ability to actually, right, be able to see it through. And the foreclosure rates for Black homeowners during that crisis.
53% of Black wealth wiped out.
That's exactly right, Roland. I took on and sued the big banks and ended up delivering $20 billion for the homeowners of California. The former President Obama recently mentioned the fact that I actually took on the Department of Justice and the administration, saying I'm not going to do a deal that brings crumbs to the table.
But not just when you're Attorney General, because even right now, the DOJ, Civil Rights Division, the redlining lawsuits, mortgage discrimination.
We have been taking all of it on. Mortgage discrimination, also discrimination in home appraisals. We've taken on the fact that, you know, those stories about a Black family is trying to get their home appraised. They want to get a second mortgage. They want to sell the house, whatever. And they bring in the appraiser. The appraiser looks around, looks at the family pictures, and appraises it for less than it's worth. The family knows that. They're not stupid.
The Black folks got to remove photos,
so
books,
then they
DVDs,
remove photos and everything else, right? They remove
all the blackness.
All of that. And then they ask a white family that's a friend of theirs, come in, they put up their pictures, and the house gets appraised for more. Racial bias, we're taking that on for the first time. And I want to give due credit to former Secretary of HUD, Marcia Fudge, for being a leader on that. These are the things we've taken on. And as president, to your point about supply, I'm going to create tax incentives for home builders and developers to build 3 million new housing units by the end of my first term, because a big part of jacking up the prices has been the supply is not meeting demand, so the prices are higher. And when you couple that with $25,000 down payment assistance, we have the ability to give people the opportunity to achieve what generations before called the American dream, but which has been out of reach for too many people. My work around thinking about how it's going to directly impact Black folks is knowing that when you look at racial bias in home appraisals, when you look at the disproportionate rates of Black home ownership to other people having home ownership, it's too low. And it's not because we don't aspire to have a home or buy a home. My work is about looking at small businesses, knowing they're at the backbone of our economy in the neighborhood, in communities, and giving folks an extension of a tax deduction so it's not just $5,000 for a startup small business, but $50,000 because nobody can start up a small business on $5,000.
I'm glad you mentioned small business. I was talking to a black restaurant owner in Houston, and we were talking about the corporate tax rate.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he said was, he said, listen, I'm looking at her proposal. I'm looking at what was the place beforehand. He said, because when it got cut, it puts $500,000 in my pocket.
Yeah.
When I was in Georgia, Senator Warnock's campaign in 2022, a black woman said, hey, she said, I get reproductive rights. She said, I'm not having any kids, but I do care about taxes.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I'm hearing from a number of African-American business owners who are saying, okay, what will Vice President do if she's president deal with corporate tax rate? And so you talked about increasing it. Will that mean a certain cap? So let's say if you 50 million, 100 million revenue or less, will that go up? Or will that corporate tax rate apply to all businesses?
So first of all, the corporate tax rate years ago was in the 30s. So I'm not doing that. But in terms of tax cuts for middle-class families, my agenda is all about tax cuts for middle-class families and no tax rate hike for anybody making less than $400,000 a year. But my approach is also about giving 100 million Americans a tax cut in terms of middle-class tax cuts. Donald Trump, on the other hand, first of all, like he did before, he will do again and has pretty much pledged that he will give a tax cut for billionaires and the biggest corporations. Donald Trump has indicated that basically what I call a Trump sales tax will be in place, which is a 20% tax on everyday goods and services, which economists have estimated will cost the average American family $4,000 more a year. Goldman Sachs.
Including the small businesses.
Of course, yeah. Including small businesses. Not to mention what he is doing. If you look at Project 2025, what they're proposing in terms of cutting off, for example, we see Hurricane Helene, what we have seen happen in terms of Milton, cutting off the SBA ability to give small businesses that have experienced an extreme weather event, a disaster, giving them additional resources. This man don't want to help small businesses.
Keenan, thank you so much, and thank you others. I'm going to bring up my good brother, Bakari Sellers, who's here with me, and talk about this policy agenda. We're going to do a split screen, the two of us, and then we're going to try tonight to come and get some of our panelists to be a part of this conversation. Sorry, I just want to thank you, big brother, to kick it over to you to give us some words, and then go back and forth on this policy.
Man, what's going on? First of all, thank you for having me. As always, it's good to be with my brothers. I'm in the big city of New York, a little bit underdressed, as a true South Carolinian would be. But I'm kind of, my body's warm because of the fact that this town hall tonight went off better than anybody can imagine. Shout out to Charlamagne the God for being substantive, inquisitive, asking good questions, all the listeners, doing it in Detroit. Last night I was in Detroit with Delroy Lindo, Don Cheadle. I was in Detroit with, who else was there? Cornelius Smith was there. Thomas Booker was there from the Philadelphia Eagles. Jeff Johnson was there. And we had a robust, frank discussion. And honestly, there were a lot of people who it was two categories of folk in the room as well. People who were sitting on the fence and people who had their head in the sand. And it was fascinating to see Delroy Lindo just go person by person and talk to individuals who had questions about the record of Kamala Harris. And so that was dope. And the policy agenda, I know my brothers know, but we worked hard. I worked hard. We worked hard to get the campaign to this point. And I know people always hear about the access to capital for small businesses, but I will tell you that my favorite parts of that agenda had to do with health equity and putting more black men in the classroom. Those two things jump out at me and are very important. We can go through the entire plan, legalizing marijuana. I'm also, as we talk about legalizing marijuana, I'm also happy that the plan wasn't so heavy on criminal justice reform, because for a long period of time, that's all white progressives and conservatives talk to black men about, was criminal justice reform. But you're talking about buckets. You're talking about making sure that you have programs in which you can participate in stock programs when your company's doing well. You're talking about sickle cell registries. You're talking about making sure that the Affordable Care Act covers prostate exams and colorectal exams and lowering the age to receive those things. The plan was robust. You're talking about mentorships and apprenticeships programs. And look, Brian Nelson, who I worked with on the plan a lot, did yeoman's work as always. He was with us last night as well in Detroit. And I'm just excited about where we are.
Thanks, brother. I know you're doing great work and traveling around. Appreciate you digging in on this policy agenda. We're going to try to have a couple brothers go through point by point and bring it up. Stay on as long as you can, Bakari. But again, thank you. Thank you for helping us get the shout out tonight from our President 44. But we're going to try something different on this panel. We're going to try to see if we can pull some brothers in from the chat who've been reaching out to us. Let's try to see if we can go over and get Thomas Blanton in DC, and then we're going to try to see if we can get Columbus Moore to come over and join us. And if they're available, we'd love to pull you over. Greg Adams, finally found your name from Southwest Mississippi. Glad to have you here. Keenan is going to work to pull over the two of you. I think Columbus Moore and Thomas Blanton, if you're still on. Bear with us, everybody. Seeing if they're coming over. Okay, Keenan, while you pull that up, we're also going to pull up the policy agenda. If you go to winwithblackmen.org, it is the black-male-policy agenda that you can tag in on right there. If you agree with it, which I agree with many of the points, you can add your name as in support, and we would love it for you to do so. I'm actually bringing it up right now. Perfect. Oops. There we go. Yep, just that was the page. There we go. Thank you to the 117 of you that have signed on to support this. I am going to try to enlarge it on my screen so we can take. There we go. We're going to scroll up to that economic empowerment. What I love about this policy agenda is that this is the first time that I have witnessed a presidential candidate invest in time and energy to write something specifically for Black men. We know that this is going to the hearts and minds of our communities so that brothers can understand what this administration is going to say and do. Now, let's also be clear. This isn't a blank check. We need to show up on November 5th and on November 6th to vote. And then on November 6th, work to hold that accountability to make sure that we can enact all these policy positions. It's not just a meritocracy that we've gotten here and we get people over the finish line, but we can take it from there. All right. So as you can see, providing $1 million fully forgivable loans to Black entrepreneurs for up to $20,000. Expanding access to bank accounts, venture capital, and affordable banking to help Black men build wealth. Encouraging employee stock ownership and profit sharing to close the racial wealth gap. Promoting home ownership for Black men, tripling first-time Black home owners by the end of the Harris first term. Offering affordable childcare and expanding the child tax credit to help Black families, and supporting financial innovations as cryptocurrency with protections. I think right here, we are now seeing a clear and definitive role for what this is going to look like for us as Black men in this current administration. Perfect. Thomas, glad to have you. We're going to try to see if we can pull you in. I'm working with Keenan to figure that out. But with a show of hands, if you can in the chat, let us know. Is this the first time that you have seen this comprehensive of a Black male agenda for Black men? I think Thomas's support the statement for Black men since Frederick Douglass. Agreed. Okay. Let me see here. Studio chat. Gotcha. All right. We're working on trying to figure this out so we can pull some folks in. Give me 1 sec, everybody. I'm pulling from the chat. Some of you are, okay, first time for sure. Dwayne Marshall. Agreed. Roland Smith. Brian Young. There we go. I'm working on getting a couple other brothers to join us. All right. Andre Evans, thank you. Historic. Perfect. All right. Let's tick back over here. Job creation and employment. Expanding apprenticeships and pathways to good paying jobs for Black men, including high demand industries. Breaking down barriers to employment by addressing criminal records and credit scores in hiring. Supporting mentorship and leadership programs that provide Black men opportunities to develop skills. I appreciate a good brother of mine, Mondale Robinson, is going to hop on to debate some of these issues with me. And I believe Quentin James from the Collective Pack is going to join us in just a sec. Again, I know we are out of our normal order where we are on Sundays. We'll be back this Sunday, hopefully with our state and municipal leaders joining us. For those that are wondering, we have a youth call that is coming up. Some young Black men who are leaning into this work are going to be putting on a call, I believe, in a couple of Sundays. Maybe this Sunday, but I'm checking right now. Yes, I think this Sunday is actually the youth call that we're striving for, to get them more engaged on, to hear from them. Let me see, who else do we have on? No one else in the studio at the moment. I see the chat is going. Just speaking to some of the things that we've seen throughout this plan, if you haven't had a chance to sign up on it, you can go to winwithblackmen.org and review the plan there. Again, it's winwithblackmen.org. I am, let's see, I think I have the right link. I'm going to make sure I give it to you. I will make sure it gets in the chat in just a second. But it's an amazing opportunity for you to be able to participate. And I want to call out those that are, it's not comprehensive enough. It doesn't go through everything. The opportunity that we have here is a start. It's not the finish line. This is the beginning of a conversation that we can engage more and more Black men around what is important for us and in our communities. So I am just excited that we are here, trying to toggle through and see we are. Gotcha. If you, Thomas Blanton or others, we were trying to pull you in, check your email. We sent you a specific link so that you can join the conversation. Keenan reached out to you and sent that to you. But trying to keep up with the chat to make sure we have everybody taking advantage of. Sorry, my thumb is a little heavy-handed and going over. Perfect. But this plan isn't to be the end. It is truly to be the beginning and the start of a conversation. So I'm excited that we have something that we can pull from and continue to grow from. Devin Miller, you're right. I think, and what we're starting on, and I think it's a good segue to our national weekend of engagement and our day of action that's coming up. We are looking to engage Black men all around this country on October 26th and October 27th with a Souls to the Polls program, and then a day of action on October 29th. October 29th is National Early Vote Day. On that day, we're going to be galvanizing Black men around the country to be a part of this program so that they can talk more and more to brothers and get engaged. I want to bring up Executive Director and founder of the Black Male Voter Project, also a mayor, Mondale Robinson, to debate with me and have a good, healthy conversation about this policy agenda. I appreciate the amazing work that the Black Male Voter Project is doing. We go long back in this effort, and kudos to him. I am learning from him. Black Male Voter Project was around and before Women Black Men was started back in 2022. And so, Mondale, open it up to you to give us some initial remarks, and then let's have a conversation about what this policy agenda means. Oh, mute. There we go. Not yet. You know, we think brothers learned this from the pandemic. We're still working it out.
What about now?
We got you now. There you go, brother.
Sorry about that. Actually, what happened was, it don't matter. My phone, my computer. Anyway, thank you so much for. Let me first say this. You did this call. Come back up. I want to send it to you, brother. Come back on the call real quick.
Oh, man.
I know you're doing logistics. you started doing this call as soon as VP got in the race, and you've been consistent. So thank you so much for standing in the gap and doing this space. I know I was on the first call and then disappeared, and I'm back right now, but that's because, like, the brothers we talk to at Black Men Voter Project are not the brothers who are probably in the chat or the people in the chat. You're doing the heavy lifting on the other side of what we're doing. So I appreciate how you show up. And when people hear me say we're doing the work, we're doing this work, it's not to discount what you guys got going on, what Quentin and those guys got going on. It's to say that we're speaking to different avenues and different sects of Black men. So thank you in that space. I wanted to say that. Listen, we've seen a wonderful week. I appreciate how fast this campaign has been able to adapt and understand. And just as the vice president said when she first announced her race, she said that she's not expecting Black men to give her the vote. She's going to earn that vote. And this damn plan goes a long way to earning this vote. So I'm super excited to see, like you said, a great footing, a great starting for us to have this conversation and also prioritize the needs of Black men. And I don't need people, on our side of the aisle or even people who think that they are doing good work as it pertains to recruiting Black men to be saying things like Black men, they're so tired of us, caping or being whiners. Black men are not whining when we ask for things. It is important that we ask for things. And I like that what the conflict that happened last week with Barack Obama was beautiful for this moment. And what I mean by that was we watched a past president who happens to be a Black man make a mistake in what he said. He misspoke. And what I mean by misspoke is you cannot, in this late of a political cycle, do anything that may cost the candidate votes. And he centered his opinion instead of what this candidate was doing, and that was earning Black men vote. But instead of her getting stuck or bogged down in that, she bounced back, and her campaign gave us this plan at a perfect time. So I'm super excited to see what's going to happen and what's going to come from this plan and what it looks like when it's implemented, and also how we build on it to add more and protect against what we know the other side is offering. Here's another pointer from someone who is doing the work to reach Black men that don't normally see themselves in the political space. That is the 59% of Black men who are already registered but have not voted in the last 4 federal elections, or only one of them. These are brothers who are living with their backs against the wall. They're not middle-class brothers. These are poor brothers. So here's what you need to know. Believing or blaming that the only reason Black men don't vote is sexism or misogynoir is doing nothing to expand the electorate. We need to be focused on what is going to bring the most of us out. And what that's gonna be is articulating this plan, making sure people understand that Black men find themselves living with their backs against the razor edge of the wall. And if you're not providing tangibles like the vice president has, then you're not doing anything to benefit us. And you should not center yourself and your anger in this moment, because it may cost us votes that we can't afford to lose. So if you're so angry that you can't articulate the benefits of this plan to brothers in your life, stay off of Twitter to after this election. Do that for the vice president, because we cannot afford to lose this election because you want to say how you feel and it's not been battle tested. And it's not a strategic way to move forward in what we need to do to bring brothers out. That's what I'm super excited about. I think beyond that, right now, everybody should be trying to do vote tripling in their own circles, meaning find 2 or 3 people that you're not sure if they're going to vote and take them out to go vote with you. You should be helping people build vote plans. By vote plans, find out when they're going to vote, how they plan on voting, and when are they going to do it, in the morning, before work, or after work. This, we know, will increase the likelihood of those people participating. Plus, if they're in your inner circle, then you are a trusted messenger for them. And right now, in this moment, only trusted messengers are going to move people whose mind is not made up. And stop believing that Black men are becoming more conservative, because what we've seen is ever since Donald Trump has been on the political space, we've seen Black men become more progressive. Every election cycle. In 2020, Donald Trump got less Black men than he did in 2016. That is a powerful statement. More Black men voted for Joe Biden in 2020 than they voted against Trump in 2016. Also in 2022, we watched Black people do something that they had never done, which was outperform their white counterparts, with Black men voting right along with Black women in ways that was unmatched. in 2023, we saw something that nobody ever expected. Black men in Ohio outperformed everybody on women's right to choose, including Black women, by 8 percentage points. So this idea that Black men are becoming more conservative does not have the backing of political data. What we do know is in February of 2020, Donald Trump out of the blue said he was going to get 20% of the Black men vote. And then we all of a sudden saw a bunch of Black men. We saw a bunch of polls say that Black men were becoming more conservative. Black men are not a conservative bloc. There is a group of Black men that sit out elections because elections have not been made real into what they're suffering through. It is our job as practitioners, as tacticians of those people who are implementing voting work or doing voting work to make these brothers see value in their vote and understand that voting is like brushing your teeth. Just because you brush your teeth, you don't skip bathing. So there's more work to be done, and brothers need to understand that. And we do that not by talking at them. We do it by listening to what's plaguing them and then acting and showing them in a way that is not transactional how we plan on addressing those issues. Khalil?
Brother Mondale, man, I couldn't agree more with you. And I'm seeing this chat. I love the bots that sometimes join these things, and we see them if they get on to stoke it. But happy to see Paul Johnson, a good brother from Philly, on. I'm not sure if Thomas Blanton got the link to join from here. If you didn't, Thomas, I'll reach out to you as well. Just if you can't get on now, we will get you on next week to have you on. I know Ambrose Lane is going to be joining. I want to bring on really quick or bring up this topic. I've heard this conversation. Look, I don't think this plan, and I think Mondale will agree with me. I am happy that we have a plan. Let's start there. Great. Happy to have it. Am I frustrated that it's coming out 20 days before the election? 100% frustrated. We would love to be talking about this in July or even the Biden campaign when President Joe Biden was the nominee or running to be the nominee, would have had this conversation earlier. But am I excited that after 100 days, we have something substantive to wrap our arms around, that brothers were a part of writing this? 100%. But now I want to bring up Ambrose Lane as well with me and Mayor Robinson just to have this conversation. Something that something that Ambrose brought up recently was we haven't had the conversation around childcare and the system that has been forming specifically on child custody and child support. Ambrose, I want to kick it to you so you can give us the backstory for what you've been seeing, some of the Supreme Court decisions as well, and then have a conversation between me, you, and Mondale about what this can mean for not only creating a larger policy agenda and the things that you are doing at Black Men for Harris.
Thank you so much, Khalil, and thank you to the brothers that are on the call. And quite frankly, the Harris agenda for Black men is a good start. All of us know that there are certainly additional issues that need to be addressed. And I'm committed to working with you, Khalil, and to other groups and organizations on continuing to build an agenda for Black men. To the point that you raised, one of the planks that we have come across, because we've been having conversations with Black men for the last 2 years, is the issue of child custody and child support. And one of the things that we have come up with is that there needs to be a national implementation of the 2011 Supreme Court ruling in Turner that says that a Black man or a man who is proven that he is incapable of providing child support cannot be arrested and jailed in a civil proceeding. That's been on the books since 2011. There are only a few states that actually implement that, but there are many states that do not use those guidelines, and they will arrest Black men and they will incarcerate Black men. And the Supreme Court clearly said that men cannot be incarcerated if it's proven that they are incapable of paying child support. Now, the issue that I think that the Harris administration has to deal with is to provide guidelines for all of the states. They need to provide guidelines for all the states, because as of right now, those child court judges use their own discretion to decide whether or not a man or a Black man is capable of paying child support. That's the issue. It's left up to the individual judge until the federal government provides guidelines for all states in terms of that Supreme Court issue. So you're right, it is a serious issue. It's an issue that we have to deal with, as well as the issue of child custody. There are those that we've been talking to that said that there really should be automatic 50-50 child custody, or 51-49 child custody, and that Black men should have the ability to enter into mediation with the mother of their children to be able to be involved in their lives. And so these are some of the other things that I think are important in terms of a Black man's agenda. But I leave it back to you, Khalil.
Thank you, Ambrose, and thank you to Mondale for continuing this conversation. As we've always said, this isn't a perfect document. But again, tell me another administration who has written a plan that is specifically dedicated to Black men, who took the time out of the campaign within just 100 days, because it wasn't her campaign totally, prior to July 22nd, or July 21st, to write a plan specifically for Black men. I've also been tracking the chat and seeing the things that be coming in. Look, I don't pay attention to bots. We're here to have a productive conversation. I appreciate those that are going back and forth. I will leave this all with you as we're going into this, and Mondale, coming over to you next. If you're comparing resumes, I talk about my amazing 7-year-old CEO that I have, who she's with me almost every day. You normally would see her running behind this screen right now. But if she has a resume like our vice president does right now, Vice President of the United States, former U.S. Senator, former Attorney General for the state of California, former district attorney, a partner, a community leader, graduate from an HBCU like Howard University, a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and has been leading and doing amazing work, trying to understand when you compare that resume amongst another resume, which is lacking, which has shown that he is willing to call for the death penalty of the exonerated 5 out of New York, actively tried to make sure that people of color could not get housing options in the buildings that he and his daddy owned, and tried for other things, not alone the most recent things. If you compare those two resumes side by side, and then your daughter, your mother, your auntie, your cousin, your sister, somebody is applying for a job and has a similar resume, can you honestly look me in the eye and say that the woman who has that resume should not get the job? So I take the president's comments, President 44, Obama's comments, to mean he is literally calling us to task. Whether it should not have happened at this moment, I believe it has been a rallying cry, and I maybe, like Mondale, can appreciate we are still having this conversation with 20 days left. We just didn't recede back, and people weren't wondering what was going to happen and where Black men were going to show up. So Mondale, what say you? And then when I come over to you, Ambrose, to your thoughts of where we are in this moment, not only to what Ambrose just said a moment ago, Mondale, about child support, but maybe other things we might be wanting in this upcoming policy agenda.
Yeah, man, listen, I think it's unrealistic, a couple things. I think it's first unrealistic for people to believe that the vice president and all of the issues with the child support system that Ambrose just actually named are an extremely well thought out and also honest and manner. I don't think the conversation that's happened in the chat with some of the bots is a real conversation. These are the guys who are moving the goalposts. They said that what is in it for me? What's in it for me? Then she gave them something. Now they're saying, what about this? They're moving the goalposts. So I think we should stop talking about that 7 or 8% of Black men that's gonna do what they're gonna do anyway, which is not show up. And that was my problem with Obama. He wasted invaluable time to talk about the 7% that's gonna always do what they always do. Right? So that the sexism is not, it's not that it's not a real thing. Misogyny is a real thing. To deny that is ridiculous. But what I'm saying is, talking about that in this moment, you offer a political football to those who mean to do harm to this candidate in this campaign. I can care less about people who refer to lies or resort to lies to push their issue. Edmund in the chat, right, talking about he's out here talking about illegal immigrants and FEMA, but he will never say that Donald Trump himself took money from FEMA to pay for the mess that he caused at the border when he was separating kids and families.
Hey, brother, I'm on a call, man.
No, you good.
All right.
Keep going, Mondale. It
Okay.
wouldn't be a Black call if we didn't have a Black moment.
It's all good. It happens. So what I'm saying is, I think we when we get sidetracked and focus on things that are not about the end goal, which is winning in an election, then we are doing a disservice to the campaign. So that was my point. But like I said, I've moved on from what Obama did because his plan is awesome. And I think, and what I mean by awesome is I don't mean complete. I mean, you've never seen it before. This is not Donald Trump has been campaigning for this office since he left this office, and he still doesn't have a campaign plan that comes close to this for Black people. He has a concept of plan apparently in his mind. Because the brother don't like to read and write talking about Trump, he has nothing. He has a couple videos that are rambling. He's probably somewhere dancing right now to YMCA instead of thinking about what his plan will do to Black men. This man said complete immunity for cops. As a Black man, that in itself should scare the hell out of you. He said complete immunity to cops. We know what happens. More Black men have been lynched by cops than during all of the Jim Crow era. That is crazy to me that people are playing with the idea that when we said Black Lives Matter, this man said Blue Lives Matter. When Black football players were protesting, he called Black women bitches, their mothers. So the idea that we are playing with Trump as an alternative to Kamala Harris is not a joke. It's beyond ridiculous to me. What I do know, though, is Trump is not really our opponent. We are our opponent. When we give in and make the missteps like we saw last week, or like we see taking place on Twitter right now, when we go further to blaming Black men, then we do the work of them because we're infighting and not doing the work to increase the electorate in the way we need to win this election.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mondale. Thank you, Mayor. Let's go back over to you, Ambrose. Any other thoughts? I know you were able to, you gave me some great opinions and facts that we should include in a policy agenda. And again, for those that don't know, and we keep saying this work does not stop on November 5th. These calls will continue. This engagement will continue. I think a lot of us saw in 2008, and Ambrose, I'm coming over to you, is that after the election, we assumed that things were going to happen. Maybe some of us did. Let me just say I did. I assumed that because vis-a-vis someone was of my ilk and from my community, they were going to take it on. What I did not perceive is that other groups would be advocating doubly as hard to get their policy agendas in place. And so what I think we've all learned from the practice of 2008 and 2012, this isn't a blank check. We are supporting, and I am supporting because I believe Vice President Harris and Tim Walz are going to be able to advocate for the policies that betterment of my community and of Black men. And what I believe is going to happen on November 6th, all the way to January, and in the first 100 days is we're going to keep calling up, did we get this done? Where are we on this? Did we move this? It's not about being at the White House for a party. It's about moving policy for our community. So whether you live in Helena, Montana, whether you're in San Antonio, Texas, whether in your South Central Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., whether you're in Brooklyn like Rob Young, whether you're in Alabama, Birmingham, like Chris Mosley or others, this policy is for you, and the work we're doing does not stop on November 5th. It continues. Ambrose, what say you on other things that we need to bring into this conversation on the policy side?
So it's just like, the being a true father. I mean, I'm at my son's track practice right now, and I just picked him up. He just finished the track practice. And that requires work. It requires ongoing work to be a good father. And it's same with this effort. And as you said, Khalil, we're committed to beyond November 5th. As a matter of fact, we must be. As a matter of fact, we can't drop the baton after elections like we typically have done. We've got to actually press on, because in 2 years, there's going to be a midterm. And certainly we hope that Kamala Harris wins. We want her to win. We're going to fight to have her win. But we know that if she does not win, the work intensifies even more. So, for example, there are 43% of Black men live at or below the poverty line. That's the reality that we are faced with, 43%. And so we have to be able to work in planks in a Black man's agenda that address the working poor, that address poor people, poor Black men, the need for jobs, not just training for jobs, but we really need to follow Dr. King's advice and look for full employment legislation. That's what we need to be fighting for. And so these are some of the other things. We have some health planks that we're going to be talking about in our call on Thursday. And I'm just saying, everybody, all the Black men that are on this call, all the Black men that are listening, need to think about what it means to have an actual Black man's agenda. The planks that are in the Harris-Walz agenda are good planks, but we know that that's not the end of it. But that
Right.
is the beginning of it. And the beginning of it is critically important because number one, it's never happened before. Number two, it's generating further conversation. And those things are important as well. But now we've got to take the baton because when she wins, we've got to be able to sit down with her and say, these are some of the other things. There's nothing in there about returning citizens. Well, we know that we have a number of brothers that have issues with regards to returning citizens being able to get back in the workforce, being able to take care of their families, being able to get a job, and some of the issues that returning citizens face, being able to vote after they have served their time. So we know that there are further issues that we must address, and we are forthright in addressing those issues. We welcome what the Harris-Walz campaign has done in at least beginning to highlight that there are issues that Black men face. We must hold on to that. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, the John Lewis Act, these are things that are good that we need to hold on to and fight for, and just continue to add and build. To continue to add and build on what has already been established. So I'm very excited. I'm certainly happy to be on this call again. And thank you, Khalil, and thank you to the brothers.
Hey,
always.
Khalil,
Mondale, over to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick before I want to say shout out for saying something about returning citizens. I saw people in the chat not familiar with that language. Sonny, a returning citizen is the proper way to talk about people who've been justice impacted. Calling people felons and is a horrible way to refer to people, especially when we know the system is racially biased. Also, someone said something about farmers, and because I'm a mayor of a rural town, it is extremely important to note that in 2021, it was this administration that tried to release that $2 billion to Black farmers for being discriminated by the USDA, and Republicans are still preventing or trying to prevent Black farmers from getting that money. And we just need to remember there's been a lot of program and policies. This is why this presidency this administration has been ranked as one of the most productive and best presidency in the history of this country because of the amount of work that's already happened. People talk about we've not gotten anything. When I said the police in some cases are lynching Black people, I'm talking about the fact that we are being killed at higher rates. It is this administration that got us the Emmett Till lynching off right now. And people acting as if that's not particular to Black people. So I'm a little frustrated when I hear that language. I also don't have time to play with the bots in your chat, Khalil. And I think that to me is frightening that people will spend this much time to use misinformation, disinformation, to come into a chat and a call that's not even pertaining to what they care about, and they know that because the title says what this is about. It's about winning for Harris with Black men. If that don't fit you, why are you here? To sow discourse. This is exactly what you're proving our point. You are here to be a distraction for something so important. You didn't start your own chat. You didn't start your own work. You came here to be a distraction. Mentioning Barack Obama's name when his name is not on the ballot is weird to me. The candidate is Kamala Harris. So whatever Barack Obama said or did, it's confusing that you want to talk about that in this moment when his sister is running. When his sister is running to lead this country. So the idea that you're talking about Barack Obama is confusing. You're not talking about Donald Trump Jr. You're not talking about whatever the other kid named Eric Trump. You're not talking about them. So why are you over here in this Black woman's space where we're trying to make sure this sister wins the White House for the betterment of all of our people, talking about something that somebody's not running did? I'm confused. I'm willing to bet half of you trolls are not willing to put your voting records up here because you're not even registered. I'm done.
I love my brother Mondale. That's what I appreciate about tonight is that we brought facts and information. This isn't us just spewing off what we believe off the top of our head just to have a conversation for an hour. We wanted to bring you the real policy agenda and go through point by point. Yes, more conversation about Black farmers should be in there. Yes, we should have more conversations about what potential reparations could look like. Yes, we should have more conversations about what the legalization and the uncriminalization of marijuana conviction should look like. I think these are all conversation points that we should continue into this, but it's why we're doing this work. It's why these calls are important. I would not have thought about child custody issues and bringing that to the forefront if it was not for Ambrose Lane. I would not have thought about some of the data that we're seeing from brothers, and I think there's somebody asked in the chat, we all belong to a fraternity. I don't. I am here because I'm a Black man just like you. We are fraternal in that way. But Mondale brings me information from groups of brothers that I don't necessarily get to talk to. I said this on our call back on July 2nd, and just a quick asterisk. We've been doing these calls since 2023, and they only got really where they are now because of that great call that we did back on July 22nd. But in one of those first calls, I said, while there are 5 major black male fraternities, I may like Marvel. I think Roland may like DC. Mondale may like something else, as well as Ambrose. It doesn't mean we're a monolith. We're going to have various different viewpoints that we bring to the table. But to create a policy agenda that we work as a community and start tackling some of the issues one by one is how we move forward. So I know we're coming to a close in the next 4 minutes from this conversation, but I appreciate this chat tremendously. I appreciate knowing that in the last few elections, over 80% of African Americans have showed up and voted in their conscience for the candidate that they believe is going to best serve them. I believe that there's a candidate here who has spoken truth to power, who has put her foot or 10 toes down and held us down in ways, whether it was, and Mondale, correct me if I'm wrong, in California when she was Attorney General. I'm not remembering the name of the program. What was it again? It was the
return. You talking about her returning program for returning citizens? Yeah, second step. I mean, second
step program, chance program.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, I mean, making sure that we're sharing that with you. So if you believed as Attorney General, she was just locking up brothers willy-nilly and just going out there and throwing people in jail, it didn't exist. So what we want to make sure is that we're doing is we're taking facts, we're bringing information to you. That yes, sisters, and I think Mondale will agree with me as one of our final closing points is yes, Black sisters are doing amazing work showing up to vote, but we're talking about single-digit percentages between them and Black men in terms of those that are not voted. So it's a myth to believe that Black men are not showing up to vote. But I think what we wanted to call out and wanted to be very intentional in this conversation tonight was that just like in Georgia, where mistrust and dissent was being sown between around Stacey Abrams' gubernatorial candidacy in both elections, we did not want that to happen here in this national conversation. I want to be able to go to bed on November 5th and wake up on November 6th that I can explain to my 7-year-old CEO why a woman is president of these United States.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want to have that conversation about why this country is unfair and the most qualified woman in the room did not win the job. I am okay with a woman leading and being in charge and determining the fate for our country. I see no problem in it. I don't know why others may have that be a hang up in their deciding factors for why they can't do it. I think that's what others were calling out last week and really excited about where this conversation is. Mondale, I'm going to go over to you for final thoughts and as well as to you, Ambrose, and then we're going to close out at 8 o'clock tonight.
Let me give you a testament. First of all, let me apologize for misspeaking, but let me give you a testament to the success of this call. You have Tariq Nasheed in your chat begging for attention, and I'll just leave it at that because that's a congratulations to you. That means that side understand that they've already lost. They're bowing to you because they can't go ask Donald Trump for reparations, and they've been screaming no tangibles, no vote. Now they have tangibles, and I want to see how he's going to move the goalposts. I don't need to close. You did a wonderful job with Win with Black Men, and I'm so appreciative that he's in your chat and you're not in his because it says a lot about what you built over here, brother.
Thank you, good sir. Over to you, Ambrose, to close us out. Final word.
We have an opportunity, and we need to grab onto it and not let go of it. We have the opportunity to begin to really, truly organize nationwide in terms of our agenda and making sure that our agenda is put forward, not just with the Harris campaign or with the Harris administration, but put forward in every nook and cranny, in every state, in every municipality. There are policy pieces that are transformative, and they are beyond just national legislative pieces. We have pieces that we can put into play in states and in cities and in local municipalities, and we need to organize ourselves around these principles, around these planks of a Black man's agenda, and we have the opportunity to do that, not just now through November 5th, but after November 5th as well. We need to commit to doing that.
Ambrose and Mondale, I appreciate you taking the call and hopping on very last minute. I know some of our other co-hosts that are normally here, Roland, and appreciate Bakari for jumping on, and Mike Blake and Quentin James. We couldn't get the last 3 on, but Also, big shout out to Keenan for holding it down. He's always here with me in the background and gets it done, as well as to our amazing Win with Black Men team, DeAndre, Mike McQuarrie, Jaquan, Robert, Ernestine, Janine, Uche, Ace, and Tim, who do all of our graphics. Just a huge shout out to that team. Again, last but not least, just want to let everybody know, go to winwithblackmen.org. Look out for our resource email. We're doing our 50 state strategy, but including DC and our 6 territories is 57. We're trying to make sure we're engaging Black men all around this country, so that on our weekend of action, you're knocking on doors. Our day of action, you're taking souls to the our Sunday after that, you're taking souls to the polls on the 27th. And then our day of action on Tuesday, October 29th, National Early Vote Day. You are going out, and we are trying to organize, stealing this great idea from Ambrose Lane. 1 million Black men around this country are going to show up in their state capitals and activate and do some engagement. I know many of you have signed up to be a state captain. If you haven't, please do so. We can't wait to get you engaged and get excited for the final 20-some days of this election. Thank you, everybody, and look forward to seeing you on our youth call this Sunday, 7 p.m. Black men between 17 to 30. We are going to have a youth call this Sunday. Looking forward to having you all on. Thank you all so much.
Good job, bro.
Love you, brother. Thanks, everybody.